Okay, is there any other questions about tomorrow?
Yeah.
Betty, hurry.
I need I need childcare volunteers. 2 for 8 to 10. 8 to 10. Or any portion thereof. 10 to 12.
Okay, yeah. 10 to 12.
Okay. Michael, and who else?
Oh, volunteers tomorrow?
1 for 12 to 2. Well, that's okay, parents will be there. And I need 3 for 5 to 7 or one of those hours.
No.
2 more.
Okay.
Okay. And 1 more. Okay.
Okay, well, let's get started. If you have any other questions, just ask them later.
What we discussed yesterday about basic twist and ego's game in identifying ourselves with the Milarepa's early life, his ambitions and everything. There seemed to be a different slant beyond that level of basic twist in Milarepa's life. There is a sense of the basic twist has a certain game and a goal which is familiar, and the purpose is fulfilled. And then there is a big gap of what do next. Sense of desolation you have achieved, and your short goal of destroying your relatives and able to deceive other people and able to achieve the small ambition. And then what happens next is comparable to that ordinary life situation. Today it's like you want to create a comfortable environment, luxurious home, collect good friends, and educate yourself to the highest level. And then something happens, and we have achieved all these things what we want. And then there's nothing beyond it. That run away from home and becoming a rebellious person. It's not the only expression of freedom, or for that matter, being a successful, rich person and able to lead your life successfully or closer to your want. That somehow still something doesn't quite work, and there's a sense of a letdown at that point. That all your dreams begin to realize they're just purely dreams rather than has any particular pragmatic value. So the fantasy after fantasies of all kinds begin to develop. And these fantasies are purely expression of confused ambition rather than carefully planned and solid ground. So that kind of sense of a letdown seems to play a very important part. Is turning ourselves into phase 2, so to speak. That we are able to do physically as much as possible what we want in a physical situation, or that we have exercises freedom to ourselves as far as we could, but beyond that there's something is still a sense of not being complete, not being ideally appreciative. That sense of a letdown is the beginning point of renunciation, you could say. Tibetan word for renunciation is shenlok, which means literally a state of being what you call nausea. Feel sick, that you had same thing all over again, and to the point of being sick, and if somebody mentions even the name of such thing, you feel nauseating. That Shenlok, in this case, is a result of exercising too much freedom to ourselves. Our ego has too much freedom, and it did not fulfill our purpose, what we wanted to be fulfilled. that we've been spinning around in the samsaric whirlpool and finally getting dizzy and helpless. And if we go too far and if we repeat it too many times, that possibilities of completely losing keeping track of sanity to the point of breakdown. So the renunciation is you have a personal experience. This experience in life is fruitless. One game after another game, and it does not fulfill any fundamental purposes at all. The point of renunciation at the beginning is somewhat a sense of rediscovering our own unpleasantness. Particularly when we try to launch into any particular project, trying to save ourselves from that embarrassment to ourselves or discomfort to ourselves. That makes you nauseating. That here we go again, and I'm just about to throw up. I can't get onto that track again and again. There's a sense of more than the boredom of ourselves. It's that we realize our repetition as something terribly claustrophobic and sickening in many ways. Like when you feel sick, you might go out and breathe fresh air. Similar kind of analogy, that there is a sense of claustrophobia. You want to step out and to breathe fresh air, just to change the subject. So at the beginning there is a sense of imprisonment, which inspires the sense of renunciation at the beginning. And that was the state of mind of Mиларепы at the time. When he achieved what he's supposed to be achieving, and then he felt tremendous let down. He can't even practice his black magic as business adventure, and nobody would employ him. To be afraid that in case that if you're on the wrong side of him as employer, that the employee would destroy the employer. So it's very dangerous. And also the family problem at the time of Milarepы is a rich man's game. And there aren't that many rich people, so there's less fight for properties and the rich and the wealth. People are fairly satisfied with the frugality they have. And there's a sense of a letdown, a sense of a desolation, that embarrassment that you are a murderer of 10 people, 18 people supposedly, that now you become famous in the whole valley. In Milarepa's case, that he's the black magician who murdered 18 relatives, and he's with something awful, and people then speak. Yet there's no material gain after that. Sense of desolation, a sense of that something is slightly twisted in the other way around, that that destroying these people was supposed to bring happiness to him. Instead, that he achieved further pain of rejection by the society as a murderer by magic rather than the traditional, conventional style of a bandit, which has a different kind of classification altogether. And the bandits are regarded as a trade of their own. They belong to certain society, social categories. But as far as black magicians, there's no club for them. There's no social category. You just stand out on your own. So in the sense that what we have achieved our own satisfaction of our own ego, exercising freedom to ourselves, or extremely involved with the drugs, or extremely involved with the money-making scene, or extremely involved with the whatever that we feel that would justify our existence. It does not have to be those methods are particularly, we don't have to categorize as being belongs to the right wing or the left wing or whatever, the underground or the establishment. It does not matter at all. The style we do it, exercise our independence, and we're trying to achieve something, trying to prove something to ourselves, and we finally achieve it, somehow or rather, even partially we achieve it, and that is equal to black magic of Milarepы. Although we are not particularly murderers or thieves in the conventional sense, but the subtleties could be questionable at the same time. We could have been, if we are extremely ego state or something, extreme 100% egohood, one way or another, that we must have been extremely aggressive or extremely passionate. The classifications of murderers and the robbers, in the fundamental sense that we got to be one of them. In the subtle sense, probably it's too subtle that the law of the locality or the government law and the rule regulation cannot even pick up such subtleties, and seem to be only a karmic situation will pick up that subtlety. It seems that we should become, or we have to become criminals from that point of view. Before we realize that we've been completely let down. And also we have to realize that complete and a sense of nausea can be only discovered by realizing some extreme. Otherwise we can't be nauseated. Some sense of disgusted with ourselves, something. That's the starting point to realize renunciation. And renunciation then leads us into another kind of ambition, which is still ego-oriented, of course, naturally. But at the same time, there's renunciation connected with a faint hope, faint possibilities something might turn out to be okay. But there is a mixture of ego's ambition and sense of one's Buddha nature shining through, placed simultaneously together, beyond enunciation. And that seemed to be a starting point of searching for teaching. Through a teacher, in Milarepa's case, that he has gone to numerous people and trying to find a way of developing himself from that lost, rediscovering himself somewhere, searching for the Dharma. And his searching for the Dharma is largely trying out which one works best. In order to do that, you have to at least spend some time. And he's being involved into that kind of search, which is could be also applicable to us in our own state of being. Is that when we feel that we've been let down by our ambition in life, and we feel embarrassed by being such criminals, then we try to find some better way of getting into a better, more spiritual, sane approach. And our shopping trip begins to happen at that point, which is also part of the integral part of the development, that one has to go through that being professional dilettante. It seems to be necessary. If one is too serious with oneself, and you're not going to be a dilettante, then quite possibly you might end up by the wrong thing. It's like you go to a buying trip, that if you're fascinated by one object, it will become the first shop, and you buy it, then you don't have any more money to spend on, and you see better and cheaper and more valuable things in the next shop, but it's too bad you're stuck with that stuff you already bought at the beginning. So therefore, in order to save sanity and energy and money, that to begin with had to be dilettante. In the Milarepa's fashion, he visited this place with a half-hearted and somewhat interested open-mindedness, which seemed to be that as we look at our own history, that we have gone through the same kind of process. We've been criminals, we've been dilettante, and we are just about to get into somewhere which is also uncertain, but had to be some kind of penetrating message had to come to us. That is discussing about Milarepa's meeting with the Marpa, which we'll discuss day after tomorrow, and we should stop that point today, and if you'd like to have any discussion, questions concerning with that, we could get to it.
I know you talked about passion and aggression, but I always get stuck with the word passion. Could you say a little bit about the quality of passion?
You see you're stuck with the passion?
I get stuck with the word passion. It always evokes to me just the idea of intense feeling or intense emotion. And
well, passion is, I could say, passion is a state of intense loneliness, that you would like to bring something to occupy yourself, keep yourself company. And you find that the object of passion has something to offer to you to keep you in company. Looking for an ultimate babysitter.
It seems that when one's really feeling one's pain, one opens oneself up to one's neuroses and one starts working with it. And then somehow we create a comfortable situation or get to a point where we stop working with our neuroses and somehow it gets comfortable. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves again opening up to one's pain. What can we do to sort of still feel inspired to work with ourselves when somehow we feel comfortable again or not as open to our pain?
What seems to be the basic point is that if we look for comfortable situation, then we are working towards situation in which we could prevent further search is being in a comfortable situation. Whereas if we are still willing to live with the discomfort, is exploring situation. And the point here is not to seek comfort particularly, but willing to work with the discomfort. Discomfort means a very intelligent approach to a thing. Like if you're sleeping in the tent a rainy night and you find that the bottom of your bed is soaking wet and you begin to feel that there's water coming up to me, which is an intelligent thing to feel. And then you feel a leak on the top. You know that there's a hole in the tent or something. I mean, those are very intelligent, logical discovery. Whereas if you are in a air-conditioned place somewhere that you can't even feel the hot or cold, and the whole thing becomes immune to it, and you have no feeling, no sensations, you are completely hypnotized by your comfort. So you have no way of using your intelligence. So discomfort is therefore regarded as renewing our inspirations and intelligence to work with ourselves to begin with. And in most of the cases that even we have managed to achieve a temporary comfortable situation, but we have to maintain that, and if something else come up and start a chaos. So therefore, as long as you don't regard them as an attack or you're going in the wrong direction, if you relate them as real and leading life and real message, then we are at least able to work with their discomfort.
Rinpoche, using that analogy, it seems a bit confusing because perhaps you feel this water coming up and water coming down, and you look about 5 feet away, there's an empty space, it's nice and dry. It seems almost that it would be an intelligent thing to move your sleeping bags where you don't get soaked and come down with pneumonia, etc., instead of staying in the water and dealing with the discomfort.
Sure, you could. But then that place, it does not mean the ultimate comfort either. You find that further, you might dream of a better place. When you begin to relax and settle down, you find there's a stone underneath your bed.
Sometimes, though, you do something you always wanted to do and found that you really do feel satisfied and enjoy it. Is this a block in your path. And you
Well, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say that you have to inflict the pain on yourself constantly. I don't mean that, but I mean that if you don't regard the discomfort as an intruder into the process of your life, if you regard the discomfort as a part of the message of the comfort, you like doing something, you feel highly satisfied, you had a good meal or something, had a good rest, that's fine, but that's just a momentary thing, and that doesn't last all the time. So that comfort has to have some kind of boundary, which is the discomfort. So as long as you're willing to relate with the discomfort rather than you're inflicting pain on yourself, that's the opposite point. I mean, that's just a very simple-minded approach at the same time.
There's some confusion I have about the value of resisting getting into trips. And some temptation might come up to indulge in some kind of, maybe a very abstract intellectual discussion or something that would go nowhere, in a sense of some trip that you want to get into. And you can see that it would be useless, and it would just increase the confusion and sort of not really get anywhere. The temptation is still really strong, and I can never figure out if it's worthwhile to resist it or just go ahead and go into it and experience the discomfort that's going to come out of it.
Well, I don't see any problems in getting into it because I suppose there are certain limitations how far you can experiment yourself. For instance, you can't experiment with the death, because you can't come back and say that it was a rehearsal. But apart from that, a lot of experiences that do happen, and I think they should be open-minded rather than that you are committing yourself into a sinful action or whatever. I mean, the caution makes a problem.
What?
The caution makes a problem. But being cautious is good in some way, but at the same time it acts as a blockage. So, in other words, not relying on the second-hand stories, but first-hand account is always best.
You talked about Milarepa's renunciation, or renunciation that comes from a sense of nausea. Is it the same renunciation that might come from a sense of great disappointment, or great, sort of a bitter disappointment, rather than having had all you want and being nauseated by a disappointment that you couldn't have what you wanted, or that things weren't what you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, that's saying the same thing. Even if you had everything disappointed by it, that means that you couldn't extend that achievement forever. There's a big drop. So that is finally by saying, same thing as that you don't have enough. You feel nauseated by it. Yeah, that's disappointment. That's saying the same thing. In other words, you can't have everything absolutely ideally. And the more you regard that your achievement is a richness, that there is that much poverty involved.
Even enlightenment.
Well, enlightenment is supposedly unconditional. That has no reference point. No ego, therefore there's no reference point. So you can't regard enlightenment as pleasurable, painful.
It's not an ultimate comfort because
because there's no notion of ultimate. Because there's no notion of relative. So there's no notion of ultimate.
Yeah.
So enlightenment is something quite a different kettle of fish.
I don't really understand what you mean by the subtle criminality that we all have.
Are you bothered by that?
I'm intrigued.
Well, it's a question of the regular law and disciplinary books cannot catch you. I mean, we were too easy if there's such thing. That if you did that, that's wrong. If you did that, that's right. But there's subtleties of that in which that no external means can catch you. But there is internal organization of criminal-like happenings, which is ego's function. I mean, ego from the point of view of non-ego, that existence of ego is unlawful altogether. That samsara is unlawful setup, punishable or destructible from that point of view.
Is the punishment in our karma?
Punishment is to cease to exist in its own entity. Its punishment is a karma, which is also dependent on the ego, which is even the lawmaker itself should be destroyed. Sorry? Somebody say something?
I just thought that if all ego was destroyed, it should all stop existing.
That's what would you think?
That's what you suggest?
No, that's what I didn't suggest, but that's what you might think.
You said that.
In other words, we could say purpose of life is not just purely maintain our ego. There are some other purposes. So ego isn't everything.
Keep returning to it.
No. There's no hope.
So if the lawmaker is destroyed, then there's no need for the police officer either at that point?
Yeah, there's necessary to have a police officer.
To enforce the non-existent law?
No, to destroy the existing law.
I like the idea of the when you said samsaric whirlpool. There's the idea that as you sort of, it would seem if you're on an ocean by accident, got involved with this thing, and you start to get nauseated, the only way you have of like protecting yourself is to throw yourself overboard to keep from sinking, as it were. As you go faster and faster, you can carry less and less around with you.
Well, that's very difficult to do, because if you're already in the mercy of that force, it's very difficult to do. Trying to get out of it. And the only way is that, not making a big deal of it. It's the only way. It seems to be the only way. Rather than trying to get out of it, it means making a bit more big deal of it. Therefore, you want to get out of it, and you'll be frustrated if you're unable to get out of it. Whereas if you disregard its importance, then it becomes a big joke.
Then you wouldn't like be cornered like you were talking about.
Well, I shouldn't say too much about that. No hopeful suggestions how to come back.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a first-hand experience.
Is that how you would relate renunciation to earning money? Like to pay no particular attention to it? Like when you arrive at the point of a renunciation, how do you get out of the circle? Just you have to earn money or something.
Earning money is not regarded as either involvement in the world or involvement in renunciation particularly. It's something neutral. And it's part of your breath, part of your heartbeat, because you need shelter and food. And that's another kind of livelihood, which doesn't have anything to do with belong to either of those things, but it has something to do with the continuous search from the samsaric entrapment into furthering one's sanity. There's some continuity. So any kind of livelihood to maintain one's existence, physical existence, is the thread that runs through.
So you would get into the subtleties of the nature of
Yeah, I mean, earning money is not regarded as a criminal thing, but having ego is regarded as a criminal thing. That's the difference, is that we equate ego and the money and livelihood to one lump. Very confusing.
Well, the same one pointedness that you bring to your meditation, you could bring to making money, couldn't you? And
meditation, what?
The same one pointedness of mind that you bring to your meditation, you could bring to making money, and one would help the other. It would be sort of a complement, because you would still be applying that intensity that you talked about yesterday. That intensity that Millarepы used in his black magic, for example. You could bring that to whatever activity you're doing, including making money.
Intensity?
Yeah.
Is the ego thing? You mean?
No, I'm saying that if you apply that intensity to making money and to your meditation as well, one would help the other. It would be a great stimulation to both activities.
In what sense?
In the sense that you're always working at your peak of concentration.
Yeah. What kind of peak?
The peak that seems to be necessary to create concentration, one-pointedness.
Yeah, I would say. But even that is not regarded as security either.
No. Would you advise it?
That's what I'm trying to say, is you have to do first-hand account.
In a situation where ego is being destroyed, or at least one thick layer of it, it's a situation where the person is simultaneously being cut from two different angles, and it's a situation where there's sort of like, on a subtle level, the person is trying to gain its parents. In other words, there's two umbilical cords, one going to a mother and one to a father. Now, if one umbilical cord is cut from a reference point of egolessness and the other from ego, from the newborn child's point of view, the distinction is, I mean, there's the child can see the two-ness of it, but also the oneness of it is very clear too. It's sort of like Siamese twins. But I think what I'm getting at is that, I mean, even putting a label from the child's point of view, even putting a label of like, well, this one, you know, cut through from point of view of ego, and this one cut through from point of view of egolessness, it becomes, it seems irrelevant from the child's point of view.
Yeah. I think so, yeah.
So it just sort of feel the same towards both.
Yes, or neither or either. Well, that's it.
I'd like to ask a question. It's been asked before, but it's been brought up particularly in the last couple of weeks at house meetings at Tail of the Tiger. You were talking about the lives of the people in the lineage as examples. But you didn't say whether you meant them to be exemplary in their actions, or just examples of what happens. In any case, you've been giving a description, somewhat of an analysis, portrait, to a great extent intellectual, highly intellectual. And the question which keeps on arising at the House meetings is, why are we discussing these things? And the answer given most often from one side of the Senate is, well, we're doing this to exhaust our minds, so that we're no longer intellectualized. And the other side, of course, says there's some point in doing it.
I always wondered what went on behind closed doors.
So,
what would you say would be the points and possible points in this kind of discussion?
well, see, that's the same thing. As the Dharma is the path that you trod on. Buddha is the example of passengers who already walked on that path. And seem to be, it depends on the individuals that how they regarded the example, applying to them or else copying out Buddha's style, purely, making themselves a replica of Buddha. I think the problem, all the promise are the same thing, that we can't give prescribed, 100% prescribed means, methodology. Or we can't reject the means and the methodology. But it had to be individual inspiration, that intellectualization is useful, necessary. We can't do without words, mathematics, diagrams. But at the same time, we could do with some kind of intuition. And purely relying on the statistics found it out to be not very good. So, I mean, it's very broad. So, in other words, that you are lost in the midst of all those possibilities. And if you relate it with our lostness, aloneness and loneliness, then we begin to pick up some message because we're lost, without anyone to encourage hope. As Mиларепы did, that he had no encouragement except his mother sent him several flakes of gold sewn in his coat, and wear this coat and go away. If you feel that way, find some means of continuing your existence. Apart from that, there's no encouragement. And in some sense, that his mother's approach towards him is very cruel, that he doesn't know what to do, but he finds his way because he feels so lonely, so cut off from his future of his life, how to lead life. I think at that point the sense of lost and loneliness or hopelessness plays an important part. maybe we should stop our talk here and talking about loneliness, desolation. We're having a Yin tomorrow, which is a whole day meditation practice that I feel extremely important to have that kind of discipline for those who take part in the seminar, that way of handling ourselves, way of meeting ourselves personally. And anybody who hasn't done it before might feel that they can't sit for a whole day. But you'll be surprised you can do so. A lot of people have, everybody in fact start that way. Nobody is trained from childhood to sit this way. But people picked up at a certain point. There is a certain breakthrough, their decision, confident in themselves. They decided to embark on such a practice, and people were able to do so. So, anyone who takes part in the seminar, I hope that everybody will be able to take part in this Yin tomorrow, which is extremely important in order to experience the complete of our seminar. And particularly to relate with the Milarepa's story and his life. It would be good that if you could at least try to imitate Milarepa's style just for one day, which is very encouraging, not only to yourselves but the rest of America, that we could become American Milarepas. It doesn't have to be Tibetan or Japanese or Chinese, Indian, but you could be American Buddhist, American Milarepa. And it's very encouraging if you are able to just be brave and trusting in yourself. And there's every necessity of arrangements as far as organization is concerned, that all the programs especially made available to you. And there will be a lunch period and dinner period and readings and sitting and walking and everything. That I would like to invite everybody to take part in this, which is very interesting and important. And, I hope you were able to do so. Thank you.
Please, would somebody like to take my place with childcare tomorrow, because I've never had this day and I've just given it up. Is there anyone who would take your children from 10 to 12? Someone.
I'll do it.
Thank you.